Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is very likable as Scott Lang, this crook turned hero. He's made mistakes in life and he owns up to that, but he's trying to better himself and he needs to get a job, but he's getting fired from his job because of his past. And it's this very human, real story that is just taken up a few notches, not too crazy. Okay, it's crazy. I really like how his relationship with his daughter is kind of mirrored in Michael Douglas's and Evangeline Lilly's relationship. You know, Hank Pym and his daughter Hope, they aren't on good sides with each other, you know. They're forced to work together due to, you know, stopping a greater evil. But Hope still resents her father for kind of leaving her, and Hank is trying to reconnect with her. And it's kind of a mirror to what could look like what Paul Rudd's relationship with his daughter could be in the future if he doesn't get to spend time with her now. And I really like that in this movie. It takes that idea of family very seriously, and I really enjoy that aspect to this movie. It's a lot more personal. I like how it deals with divorce too. You know, Scott Lang, his daughter's stepdad now, or her mom's fiance, I suppose. He's a good guy, you know, he's a cop and he, you know, is after Scott Lang, so he's kind of the villain of the movie, but he's not a villain, you know, it's a misunderstanding type thing, but he's really doing his best to look after Scott's ex-wife and his daughter, and I really like his character, and Bobby Cannavale is fantastic. I like him in everything that he's in. And as far as great side characters go, Michael Pena in this movie is hilarious. I really like him as an actor overall. I've been a fan of his for a while, ever since I saw Fury, and in this movie, Michael Pena is He's hilarious. He's one of the bright spots in this movie, and his especially the scenes where he's narrating how he gets his information, it's very funny, and it ties back around at the end of the movie, especially with the reveal of Falcon. Falcon has a cameo in this movie as well. Anthony Mackie as his character from Captain America and the Avengers. He's great in this movie too. He's very small in this movie, so he's not much, but I really like his character, and I don't think he's necessarily gotten the credit that he deserves, and I'm glad that they kind of treat him as, oh wow, he's an Avenger, he's awesome in this movie, because I feel like he's kind of been the side character so much in the Captain America and then Avengers too, that he deserves his chance to shine a little bit, and I'm glad that they used him specifically for this movie, even though I'm sure it's probably just because he was probably the least busy actor of the bunch. The villain is a little bit weak, per usual, in the Marvel movies. However, I don't think he's bad by any means. I really like Corey Stoll, the actor who played him. He was great in House of Cards for one season. But I think he's good at being menacing. I just feel like his character is a little bit underserved, and they give you his backstory, and you get the idea that he's just frustrated that his mentor is lying from him to him, and in turn, you know, Michael Douglas almost kind of creates the villain. They don't place blame quite like that, but I like that aspect in this movie, and I wish that they had nailed it a little bit better. There's one scene particularly that stands out to me, where they are experimenting on sheep, and Corey Stoll, his character, Darren Cross, is experimenting on the sheep, trying to make them miniature, and Evangeline Lilly, her character Hope, is there watching, as well as a lab tech who is actually performing it, and there's this look of shock on everyone's face whenever they try to miniature size a sheep and they just turn it into goo. They just murdered this sheep, basically. And there's this look of shock on everyone's face. The lab tech just looks horrified with himself. Evangeline Lilly does as well. And Corey Stoll, he gets this face where he's just kind of in shock, like, what just happened? What did I just see? But then his face kind of turns, and you see that it's more of a frustration with him. It's not a shock, but it's just he's having this kind of moment where on the outside it looks like he is horrified with what happened, but then you start to realize that he's not horrified by what he just saw. He's frustrated that the experiment didn't work, so he orders the lab tech, bring another one in, we're trying again. And I think that would have been such a great moment to set up his character and set up his menace in this movie. However, just like 5-10 minutes before that scene, you see him murder a guy in the bathroom doing the same thing. So I wish that they just took out that scene and made this show that he's menacing. You kind of get the idea that he's this scientist kind of gone mad that wants to sell things to the military before that. You don't really get a personal thing showing that he's evil until this until you have the scene where he kills the guy in the bathroom. But if you take away the scene where he kills the guy in the bathroom, then for a little bit longer he's just a scientist, the leader of this research team that is, you know, maybe wanting to sell it to the military, but may not be an all bad guy. But then if you use this scene to set up that he is not fooling around and show that he doesn't really take regard for human life in this movie, and he just wants the final product. If they used that scene for more of a motivation and didn't just make him a murderer a couple scenes before, I think that would have been a lot more effective for his character. This is one of those rare moments where cutting things out of the movie would make the movie better, in my opinion. But because they set him up as a killer, he was instantly unlikable. You had no regard for him in the rest of this movie, you know, and you really understand that he's just, you know, he's a bad guy who's generic and wants to kill people. But before that, he's not a killer. If you cut out that scene, which doesn't really matter because they never really go looking for that missing guy who dies, he's just kind of forgotten about after that. If they cut out that scene, then he's not a killer in this movie. I don't think he would have killed anyone in this movie. And I really think that that would have been a more effective villain. Him kind of just losing his way along the course of this film and trying to become a killer at the end where he's trying to hold his Scott's daughter ransom and whatnot. I think that would have been a much more effective role for this villain, and I think just cutting out that one scene would have made it play so much differently in this movie. The visual effects and the perspective that they use in this movie is really awesome too. I really like the visuals, the way that they just make mundane everyday things into incredible set pieces. The scene where Ant-Man's trying to escape a bathtub that's filling up, it's like nothing, and then they zoom out and they just show, you know, yeah, it's whatever, Michael Peña's just about to take a bath or a shower or whatever, and all of a sudden you scale back down and he's running away from this huge flood, this tsunami type level event. There's also, right after that, he falls through a grate and he goes down into a party dance club thing, and all of a sudden Ant-Man, from his perspective, it's these giants that are stomping and trying to kill him. And I really like that perspective. Then he falls down again, and all of a sudden he's getting sucked towards a vacuum. There's a cat. It's so... just the normal things that we take for granted are so interesting when viewed through the perspective of an ant, and I really like that in this movie. And I do like the heist genre that they take in this movie too. I'm a huge fan of heist movies, you know. I grew up watching movies like Sneakers or the Oceans movies and whatnot, so I really am a big fan of that heist style of movie, and this movie does it well when it wants to. However, towards the end of this movie, they kind of, their heist at the end doesn't go well, and then it turns into an action movie. And I really like where that action movie takes place. It takes place on this play set in his daughter's bedroom. And I love that it's not a big, you know, the city's about to get destroyed, because it's literally, they're tiny. If they were in downtown New York or whatever, fighting aliens or whatever, and he was this size, it would be the worst action scene ever, because it would take him 20 minutes just to run from one building to another, you know? So I think that putting it on his daughter's playset in his room is really fun. It's inventive. Whenever they make the giant Thomas the Tank Engine, it's funny. There's plenty of moments for humor in the battle. There's plenty of just things that we haven't necessarily seen. And I really like that they did that with this movie. However, I do kind of wish that they stuck with the heist genre that they had been in before this. The movie kind of feels like it's a little bit all over the place with the tone, because it starts as this very heist movie, and then it becomes this almost Rocky training montage of him trying to get better, then it turns back into a heist movie, then it turns into an action movie. So I wish if they kind of settled on one style of movie in this, I think it would be a lot stronger. So this movie does have some issues with that, but it's a very fun, enjoyable movie. It's funny, it's charming, Paul Rudd's great, and so are all the other actors. But overall for Ant-Man, I really enjoy this movie. I think that it's great, and I think Ant-Man is one of the most enjoyable movies in the MCU. It's probably my top 10 favorite ones, which, again, 10 seems like a big thing, but that's, you know, the top half, pretty much, because Marvel has so many movies behind them now. So, I really enjoy Ant-Man. What do you guys think about it, though? Leave your answers in the comments below. I'm interested in having a conversation with you down below. Leave a like as well, and stay tuned for the next video, which should be Captain America Civil War.
Are you ready to become a hero?
Now, the suit has power. You have to learn how to control it. And these are your greatest allies.
You're kind of cute. Whoa.